I know what you're thinking. The phrase worst song ever does not belong in the same sentence as the Rolling Stones. Ah, but it does. And you're about to find out how the Stones did indeed record the worst song ever. The Rolling Stones have sold over 240 million records worldwide. They played one of the largest gigs in history when 1.5 million people turned up for the band's free concert at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. And Billboard ranked them as the second greatest artist of all time, behind only the Beatles. So how on earth did they manage to write the worst song in history? Hi, I'm Adam. Welcome back to Music Mongoose. The Rolling Stones released their debut album in 1964. On Decca Records. See the big logo there in the top right corner? Yeah, that's Decca. Decca was set up in the UK in 1929 and has a bit of a shaky history when it comes to signing artists. In the 60s, they were under the impression that guitar music was on the way out and ended up rejecting the likes of the Yardbirds, the Kinks, the Who, and Manfred Mann. And most notably, they turned down the Beatles. Yes, the Beatles. Good job, lads. Speaking of the Beatles, George Harrison had a big part to play in the Rolling Stones getting signed to Decca. He was part of a judge panel at a talent contest alongside Dick Rowe, head of A&R at Decca Records. Harrison told him about the Rolling Stones and told him how good they were when he saw them perform live a couple of weeks before. And soon the Stones were signed by Decca. The debut album was released in 1964 and went straight to the top spot in the UK charts and stayed there for 12 weeks. Decca was onto a winner with the Stones. In fact, when they released the album in the US, they changed the title of it to England's Newest Hitmakers. Very subtle. Over the next 6 years, the Rolling Stones released 7 albums through Decca Records, including the very successful Let It Bleed and Aftermath. Around 1970, though, the Rolling Stones had had enough of Decca Records. They were set on forming their own record label to avoid all the meddling from label agents and the restrictions and all of that. However, Decca Records very politely reminded them that they were locked into a contract and they owed them one more song before they could be released. And this, my friend, is where the Rolling Stones' worst song was born. Frustrated with the label, the band set about creating the most commercially unfriendly single they could muster up. They recorded Schoolboy Blues, which would later be nicknamed Sucker Blues. You can see what they were trying to do here. A song full of abhorrent lyrics that could never be played on the radio that hopefully wouldn't make Decca a single penny. I mean, just look at these lyrics. Oh, where can I get my sucked? Where can I get my ass fucked? I may have no money, but I know where to put it every time. Yeah, I couldn't imagine Tony Blackburn introducing that on Radio 2, could you? So, just as they planned, Decca was forced to bury the single. It never saw the light of day, apart from being on a really obscure German release of a best-of album a few years later. Some think it was a mistake, but the Stones succeeded. One final FU to the label, and they were free to create their own. They called it Rolling Stones Records, and their first release on it was the seminal Sticky Fingers, one of the best rock albums of all time. What a way to end a contract. Speaking of rubbish things, did you know that Dave Grohl hated the Foo Fighters band name? He thought that was rubbish too. Click the video on screen for that one. And let me know what story from the music world you'd like to see next on Music Mongoose.